up, man?
What's up, man? How are you?
Good. Doing really good. I appreciate you, as I mentioned in the post yesterday, I appreciate you kind of adjusting your schedule. I know you're out on the West Coast. It's a little earlier for you to jump
Yeah,
on with us today.
not a big deal, man. I happened to find the margin of something I didn't have to do. I could do, but I didn't have to do. So I, figured we would. Was looking forward to getting back together with you. So it's awesome stuff,
Heck
man.
yeah. Heck yeah. I know we, like I said, originally scheduled for later in the day, but as you're used to, be jumping on a plane here shortly that I unfortunately can't miss that flight. So I appreciate you doing it. But I'm
Yeah,
excited to, we had you on originally, and we talked about obviously deep dive in the sales side of things. And I kind of still want to do that, but more from the hiring and really a lot of just the awesome resources that I gained from reading your book, Dumb Tax. So
awesome.
it's kind of the starting point, I think, of all things related to great teams is the hiring. So obviously, before we dive in, if you can, just for anybody who doesn't know Dustin Rhoades, can you give us the 2-minute version?
Yeah, sure. Man, industry vet. I think 20, almost 25 years now. I think I've been in this industry. So it's why I
Yeah.
shave the hair,
Right.
man. See that gray stuff you got going on there? I do a
Yeah,
little
man.
bit too. So that's why I shave the head. Makes me look younger, right? That's one of the reasons I get up at 5 a.m. and go work out every morning, right? Routines.
That's it.
I've been in industry 25 years, started out with a company called Pacesetter Corporation back in the day. Left Pacesetter, went and worked with a bathroom company. We took that public, got bought by Home Depot many moons ago, where I think they got into the in-home stuff. That was Jubilee back in the day. I think was involved with Champion for about 12 years. Sit there as a manager through there, and working my way up through the ranks, and left and was a VP of sales for Home Depot over the Midwest United States. Then left from Home Depot, went to Renewal by Andersen, where we built multiple different brands. I think the one from like way back in the day before everybody now is doing like these little $100 million branches and things like that with the Esser group. So back then it was pretty special. We went from like 8.9 million up to right around 73 million in one of the locations. Jumped in with the Burner group there. They're freaking absolutely slaughtering it now. And then came to San Diego and literally started out with the RBA group, right? 13 to 27 million first year. Then we went under Dreamstyle at that point, and then we built that branch up to about 63 million. Had 30 some reps moving around, and kind of just slaughtered it there, dude. Set the whole team. Matter of fact, they still call me and tell me how much they appreciate everything now. It's just a great team, dude. I love every one of them. And then basically I ran into Michael and Ed at the Top 500 about 2 years ago, and they recruited me in the Great Day Network. Now currently started out as VP over Patio and basically K-Designer, 2 brands. Now I'm over the enterprise as a senior vice president of sales for all a Great Day now. So kind of fun to in a little venture, right? But there's your quick 159. So now we went from closing millions to closing billions. That's the new nature. But kind of fun, dude.
Every time I see a post from Michael Hoy, it's like, here we go again. And I'm like, good grief. You guys are keeping busy, it seems like.
That's insane. There's no shortage of stuff to do, man. No shortage of stuff to do.
That's awesome. So one of the things I love about the book is because I think in my opinion, it's probably one of the bigger overlooked aspects of our business, right? Like a successful sales team is a byproduct of doing what you've wrote in this book correctly. This is the starting point. And you kind of, when you talk about finding your why, typically everybody thinks Simon Sinek and purpose and that, but it's like you can have a why for every facet of your life and your business. And in this case, it's finding your why for hiring.
Yeah.
So what was it? I'd say, what was it? Why, you're really into sales, probably one of the sharpest guys I know in the space around just flat out selling in the home. But for you to pick up and choose a book or to write a book on hiring, what was it that said this has got to be written? And this is, what was the call to action for you here?
I love it. Man, yeah, it actually kind of funny. I didn't plan on writing a book, but COVID forced us all to do some things that we were kind of out of our comfort zone on, right? So what I realized is a lot of middle managers, I call it the mushy middle, right, were really weak, right? And they brought onto it, and everybody was falling in what I call this tier 4 trap, right? Which is other people's priorities become their priority, like dealing with bad paperwork, putting up with things, being held hostage by reps, all these different avenues. And people were ignorant enough to think that just going out and finding the right salespeople would fix all their problems, right? Well, the right salesperson sometimes becomes a wrong salesperson because we put ourselves in a situation where we become victim to them. So if they left our organization, it would crush us, right? So, I developed, when I wrote Dumb Tax, I was thinking, okay, how do I help people, right, to get into this? Because as we all know, when my old company was taken over, I kind of had one foot in, one foot out towards the end of it because, I just really wasn't happy, right? So I'm like, well, let me start the consulting thing, which is what I thought I was going to get into. So when I wrote the book, I'm like, how do I help middle managers, right? And then basically sales teams, people understand just the cost of what this is killing them in their business, right? So when I wrote it is like, how do I give you a guide, right? At least put you in the mindset to make sure you know how to be successful when you're putting a team together. Because just like you said, hiring is probably one of the most important and influential thing to keep what I call a basically employee for life, right? And I'm not saying hold on to people forever because they suck, because you're trying to keep the team together, because you got the right people on the right team doing the right activities. So then basically it creates the right result. So the whole purpose is that you deep dive into the mindset of a manager, and then basically gives you step-by-step action guides with a little workbook at the end of each section to basically self-analyze and I guess knowledge test that you're getting the concept, right? And that's one of the reasons we got in there, so we could help people start building teams rather than making excuses. So that was one of the big reasons why.
One of my favorite parts is early on in the book you talk about, and I'll let you talk about it, but it's really awesome. I'm big on analogies because I'm not very smart to follow long, detailed logic stories. So I like analogies that kind of tie it all together for me. But the analogy metaphor, but around mosquitoes and elephants. Can you kind of talk about that at a high level? Because I thought that was awesome.
Oh, brother, I that comes out of my mouth every single day, right? Elephants don't bite, mosquitoes do. It's like one of my favorite sayings, right? And heard it many moons ago, right? And it was done in like a little keynote speech that Darren Hardy did, right, for the old editor of Success magazine, right? So I remember being a kid, dude, driving in my car, going to Casper, Wyoming, and all over the country, driving around doing our motel towns back at Pace Center. And I remember hearing that as a kid, and I was like, oh, and I wrote it down, right? But no one ever used it. So I'm like, I am going to take that phrase because to me, it's so relevant to everything in life. Because what it means, it's not the big things in your business you're paying attention to. It's the small ones you don't that are actually killing your business, right? So it could be like hiring a rep and then allowing them to continue to do bad paperwork because I don't want to ruffle feathers. Could be now I'm spending my whole time chasing their crap down, trying to get that stuff together. It could be the fact I'm focused on the person and not how they're actually not their makeup, right? So I'm not paying attention to disc profiles, things of that nature, to make sure they're capable. So the whole piece of it is not the big things in business that we pay attention to. It's the small ones that end up biting our ankles and biting us to pieces. Yeah, so like how many people have been killed by an elephant? Maybe they got trampled over one, but I haven't heard of it, right? Yeah. How many people have been killed by mosquitoes, right? So it's those little things you don't that'll tear you up if you're not paying attention to them, right? And that's what the premise is all about.
The other concept, probably should have talked about this at the get-go. Something I bring up often is, and I think this, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but something that you do really well is the book is written for people that want to build scaled teams, right? It's way different managing a small 5, 6, 7, under 10 person sales team. But when you're scaling big and multiplying multiple sales teams, I think the book is tailored more towards that. If you don't mind, I mean, I think there's value in it all the way through, but there's a difference in leading one sales team of under 10 and then trying to lead multiple sales teams, or just even one that's greater than 10.
Yeah.
Because you go into a really cool part, and I'll let you talk about it if you don't mind. You talk about how when you onboard a new rep, you talk about how and I'm not using the right words, bear with me, but you'll handhold them here to a point, but there comes a point where it's like, hey, I need you to do your job. because I don't have the time, nor am I going to go into my family time to babysit you. So I'll let you talk more about it, but I thought that's huge because so many sales managers, frontline sales managers always talk about, I don't have any time.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
Nope.
Families get destroyed for no reason.
Yeah. People hate sales leadership. People hate sales leadership because they think that they live their life just to problem solve and firefight. Right.
Yeah.
And if that's you, you're doing it wrong. Right. That's you. You're doing it wrong. And the reason you're doing it wrong is because you are so busy trapped in the hamster wheel and just running 100 miles an hour and getting nowhere. Right. If every day wakes up and it's like Groundhog Day, that's failure. Right. No one, you don't live life to basically work. Right. You work to live life. And if you don't understand what balance is, right, you create balance with process and systems, not basically your time. Right. Your time is the one precious. My wife has this saying, she's like a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. I love it. So she says, time is my currency. Right. Your lack of preparation is killing my currency, and I will not allow you to bankrupt me. Right. So if you think of that statement, it's pretty solid, right? I bet you wanted to write that one down. I'll say it again.
Yeah.
It's like, time is my currency. Your lack of preparation is killing my currency, and I will not allow you to bankrupt me. Right. I give her credit because we're talking about something one morning, drinking coffee, and I was like, oh, she said it. I said, stop. And I pulled out my phone. I wrote that down. I'm like, that is freaking money. Right. Because when you think about it, a lot of people, like when they're hiring, they're trying to fill a void, right? And they're trying to basically fill a slot, right? So if capacity is a big deal, if you don't know where the capacity is in your manager, oof, that's scary, right? But capacity is a big deal, and making sure you understand where your capacity is supposed to be. So if you're not at capacity, but yet you're slot filling, which means, you and I both know that means basically you're just putting somebody on the team to fill a slot because something's better than nothing, right? Well, if you start realizing, right, a bad closing ratio is the same as a bad Google review. Right. A bad closing ratio is the same as a bad Google review. So if you get yourself put in that position, not only your business starts to fail, right? And then what happens is that you get a bunch of people in there if they're made up wrong. Right. So I think about it, right? Whether you're looking at your business, you want a high D, high I, right? Whatever you're looking for, your high I, high D, you kind of know what your methods are. But if I start bringing the wrong people and they're not capable to do the job, first thing is capability. If they're not capable to do the job and I put them into the job, they're going to fail before they start it. And if people start failing before they start, because I put them in a position they're not capable to do, well, that's a manager problem, right? Did I exceed expectations of myself, the company, or the customer? Hell no, I didn't. I put myself in a position to lose, and I did it to myself, right? Self-destruction, right? I love that book, Leadership and Self-Destruction. Always reminds me of that we always look at things in our own box, right? And how things affect us, not how we affect things outside of our box. And we step outside of our own self and start looking, right? So, second thing is like when you're bringing them in, what does culture look like on day one, right? Because culture is not a fancy sign. People misuse that all the time. It's like a billboard. It's some glossy piece of paper sitting on their wall that my culture is really good, right? Well, great. Okay. I ask you one question, right? Can you define your why you exist? Why does your business exist? Why are you so important? What are things how do you define success at the end of the customer journey? What does success look like for your company? And if you can't define it, I hate to tell you, you're living for activities. You're not living to make a difference, right? I always say, Zig Ziglar said back in the day, do unto others. You give enough other people what they want in life, you get what you want in life as well. And if you think about it unselfishly, how do we make sure we hit those marks? So at the end of the day, I can define success, what my organization looks like, what I personally exceeding my expectations, right? Am I exceeding the expectation of my company and my customer? And if I don't know what those things are, I fail. So again, part of building a team is you got to build an environment for the team to want to come to, right? Joseph, if I came and I worked on your team and I know you're a stud, right? Why would I want to buy into your belief? Why would I want to buy into your beliefs and concepts, right? Why do I feel like that's the best for me, my family, my surroundings, right? Why do I feel like that's the best? And if I come in, dude, and you introduce me in a toxic environment, and I'm a positive, I've been an achiever, I'm not staying for long, right? I think Brian Gallo says you can be wrong, but don't be wrong for long, right? So we look at the things, we're trying to accomplish. It's a big freaking deal. But the nature is, again, you got to build the system and the processes for people to come in so they can be successful, right? think about it. What does onboarding look like? What is the things into it? Are they enchanted when they come into your business? If they're not, then again, we set ourselves up to be lackluster. And then we wonder why we've got this big turnover ratio, right? And then performance manager. How do I performance manage, right? So I tell you, when you're coming in, you're talking on that day one, like your systems that are built are what you're introducing your team into, right? So I ask you, if you're a manager or even a sales rep, like when you walk in through it, what does day one look like, right? What does day 30 look like? What does day 90 look like? What does 6 months from now look like, right? You have it mapped out. And I tell you, quick, if you don't if you're too busy trying to be busy, then you're going to be unproductive, right? Then again, all those people that you hired that weren't capable, man, you're messing with their paperwork. You're chasing them down. You're trying to, throw them out there for they're ready, or maybe your training needs a little tune up, right? Because they've been touched in 15 years, right? So the whole nature of the beast is, again, am I doing it? Have I mastered it? My results prove I mastered it on my onboarding, because that's going to kill you when you're trying to build a team, right? And I think that's a big deal, right? Because if you live in the hamster wheel, again, what I call tier 4s, which is other people's priorities that become your priority, that steal your limelight from doing your tier 1s, which is mission criticals, you start to fail. And I think the purpose of hiring and knowing who you're bringing in, so you know what environment, right? Joseph, ask you a quick question. Somebody that's in their first 30 days of employment, how do they know they're doing a good job? Think about that. How do they know they're doing a good job?
Other than you're saying probably outside of results?
Yeah. Besides outside of results, have you ever thought about employees setting back, right? Because we always worry about what the employee's doing, but they're worried about what we're doing as well as leadership, right? As sales leadership, that type of stuff, right? You ever started a job and you're like, oh, I think I'm doing good, but I'm not quite sure, right? So boss, hey, Joseph, hey, I know I've been here for about 20 days, man. How do you think I'm doing? Right? So, but you got to ask yourself real quick, what put you in a position to even have to ask that question?
Right.
I mean, have I built a system that allows me to self-manage, or do I build a system that allows me to have to guess what's going on? I don't know about you, dude, but anxiety, like sales reps, they're full of ADHD and anxiety. Yeah. So if you create an anxiety-ridden structure, well, you're going to fail, because what happens is, anxiety is when your prefrontal cortex can't predict the outcome. Then we start creating our own outcomes, and we start second guessing and thinking, and then we don't get the paycheck we want on Friday. So instead of being dug in and knowing good stuff's going to happen, now I'm like, I'm going to get fired. I might as well quit. Right. So putting yourself in the situation to know what you're building is a big freaking deal, right? That's why I'm saying you got to build. What is that? I think that's basically Field of Dreams back in the day. If you build it,
if you build
they
it,
will come.
They'll come.
Yeah.
Do you so speaking of that, your first 30 days, I'm assuming you have built-in feedback mechanisms to be proactive for that rep. Well, for all reps to understand exactly where they are, how they're performing, not just results though. It's everything, right? Because you figure some of these guys they're completely unconscious incompetent when they walk in the door, especially if they're not from this industry. But heck, the more I hire from this industry, I realize they're just as unconscious incompetent at the time, unfortunately as well. So do you, in that first 30 days, outside of the onboard training, how long is your onboard training historically? I guess maybe it depends what product, or what do you recommend there?
Depends on the product, man. But I think if you keep people in training too long, I mean, think about it. How much you were talking about earlier, trying to read, and I can't take on long stories, right? Well, most people with ADHD can't.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting there training you for 6 weeks on something, or 5 weeks, or whatever, 12 weeks, or whatever it might be, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, then suddenly, dude, you start getting that mental fog, right? And they're like, okay, wait a second. What was this? What was that? What was this? Because you can role play with them all day long. But again, the second you move on to something new, they forget what they just went through, right? So when you're looking at building the structure, right, it's like, what do you go into? So I believe in benchmarks, right? So that's what benchmarks are, like a pressure release. So if you think about a pressure release, right? If I know that there are certain things I need to be doing to stay, to make sure that I'm on track, is that defined? And if those are not defined, and they can't look at it without coming up and saying, Joe, how am I doing? What am I doing here, bud? Then you don't know if they're doing good. They don't know if you're doing well. Let's look at your numbers. It should be no. Hey, go look at the benchmark, and then come back and tell me how you're doing. And then when they can sit there and look at it, it's a pressure release for them. It's pressure release for you. And now suddenly we become stronger leaders because they're not having to guess what we're thinking. You ever been that way, Joe, where you've had a manager or a leader or basically an owner, and you're like, I don't know how to approach it today. Today's going to be a little different, right? So it might be good, it might be bad, right? So I need to step with tiptoes here and know if I'm on good grounds or bad grounds, right? And I call that the bipolar leader. So if you don't know what you're dealing with on day to day, then again, that's not an environment that's going to be successful, right? So yeah,
that's a good point. Do you go ahead.
No, it's just I said just basically
thinking
benchmarks
out loud about.
Yeah, benchmarks are the thing
that's my fault.
No, it's all good, man. Benchmarks are one of the things I try to pay attention to be a pressure release again. That's what I tell you in the very beginning. If it's not just having benchmarks, but it's like support system. Like with the white glove. You ever heard the white glove theory? How do you white glove people through training? Right? What makes them feel, or is your business one that, again, that's one thing we're big here is, how do from the beginning, if you come on to be a, rebel, that's one of the things we're working on. How do we white glove you through the beginning, right? How do you feel enchanted to want to come to work every day and do your best, right? And that's one thing that, with the book we even talk about is, again, it's like, think about you rolling out the red carpet, right? So you're rolling out the red carpet for a brand new employee, right? Not overly kissing their rear end, but again, letting them feel like they're welcome, like they're part of the team, taking them on tours, whatever it might be, introducing the team, right? Setting the culture so everybody, is kind and not that old school rep sitting in the corner saying, oh, you're not going to last more than X, Y, Z, right? So there's differences.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point, a real great point around that. The other question I have is, how quick will you ride, or do you recommend riding with a brand new rep to evaluate them, or not even evaluate them, but just to observe?
Well, I believe in business, right? You get about 5 leads of variance, right? So, every 5 leads we give you is like, there's an investment into there, right? People think, a lot of reps think leads grow on trees, dude. I don't know about you, but in the industry, the cost of leads gone up pretty dramatically, right? So when you're looking at that investment, there's got to be checks and balances and everything, right? So, I always say, during training, day one, if they're not out doing ride-alongs with some of your team members, hopefully they're doing it right, and you don't have a bunch of what I call cowboys on the team, right? So you send them out on a couple ride-alongs onto it, then test concepts, right? Now you're role-playing, but with some of the technology we have now, like Rail Zero, different things of that nature, you can do those virtual ride-alongs pretty quick. The second thing is when you go out in the field with it, that should be almost like on day 2. Right. If you're not out in the field, your manager, or your field manager is not out there with them on at least day 2, like their second day. Maybe first day, let them get their jitters out and figure out what it's like to move and operate on their own, so they don't feel like they're being watched. But day 2, we don't want to be wrong for long, right? So we got to get out there with them and make sure, again, we know they care. And that windshield time, just like we're having right now, that is some of the most valuable time you spend with your representative anyways, because you're creating that law of connection. And if the law of connection setting there, and they feel close to you, like you're a human that they can talk to, not just somebody that sits in front and preaches at them all the time, then again, there's effortless, right? Because then you walk down to the end of it, and then when you're rolling down, they're taking it serious, right? If you feel like somebody, like you can communicate with them and you can just be real, right? Which is what we try to do with the customers all the time, right? Get them to just be real. If we can be real with our leaders, we can also hear some truth and find some truth, right? So when it comes time for accountability later, right, where the difference between boss and leader kicks in, because again, they feel like we've got their best interests in mind. And I think that's one of the things right now with like even how the industry's changed, even since I wrote the book, right? With the recordings and stuff happening in the house, a lot of people think Big Brother is out there watching them, and that's really the wrong way to look at it. I don't know if you guys have dealt with much of the platforms right there that record in the houses, but it's a whether it's here or real, but you got to look at that stuff like almost self-coaching. If you don't look at it like self-coaching and you're looking at it as like Big Brother got me, it's a wrong mindset, right? So you got to kind of think of how to position yourself to be successful. And if you're not able to coach yourself, who's going to coach you? Nobody.
Yeah. The numbers are astounding with, I won't say specific, it doesn't matter. Zero is what I'm familiar with, but
Yep.
astounding the turnaround for especially the reps that, like you're mentioning, that take the time to listen to their own recording, listen to other recordings of the members of their team, but then also taking advantage of the AI aspect and getting the coaching, plugging in the, what's one thing I could do better based on this appointment, and that spitting out that feedback. I mean, it's just, I was a laggard to the game with that for sure at first, because I didn't fully understand. I thought it literally was just recording, and then you had to listen to 2+ hours. But with the technology and the AI, man, what a game changer.
Yeah, next level.
Big time. Big time. One of the things I love about the book that I know for a fact doesn't get probably as much of a view from current managers, or maybe they're not even aware of it. Heck, probably some owners aren't even aware of it, but it is the cost of a hire. And you break it down. I mean, just to onboard somebody, the number was over $28,000. And I remember reviewing it the first time, and I'm going, wow, that number seems high. But then you break it down line item by line item, from pre-hire all the way to post-hire. And I'm like, yeah, he's not off there. I mean, there's no fluff in that. That is spot on.
Yep.
And I don't think, like you said, reps don't understand that leads don't grow on trees, but then also it's the manager doing the hiring. Like you said, filling a slot versus improving the team.
Yeah. Well,
it's mind blowing. Go ahead.
Oh no, freaking dude, I love that topic, right? I wasn't going to give that one away yet, but we gave it. So it's disgusting the amount of profit lost in a year by procurement, right? Which is it's disgusting. That's why, if you don't take hiring serious in your business, you're being wrong for long, and those wrong for longs will put you out of business, right? And that's where, with technology and things right there, I said, like, I was joking around. I think I said it even on the last time me and you met, right? You're one bad sales month away from being replaced by AI. And I don't think AI is here to replace them, but in some instances it will, right? They're working on some pretty cool things right now. I've seen this amazing, but we got to perform, right? So you look at that and you're going through just what the cost of cost to get to somebody. You said, it was 28 grand when you put your math to it. And I've put some math to it. It can be anywhere between 7 grand to 15 grand to 20 grand, right? Depending on that first part. And then you've got the other aspects you don't think about, right? So if you take your yield or NSLI or revenue per lead, right? And we got to figure out, we generally hold on to people for about 90 days on average. It's like all the surveys and things that I've gone through and businesses I've helped. Generally, we hold on to a rep for 90 days because we're trying to give them time to work it out, right? So we're trying to give them time to work it out. And you take it and you say you gave them 90 leads, right? 90 leads. Take your current NSLI or RPL or yield or whatever you want to call it, right? And you times that by those 90 leads. You're going to see, depending on how efficient your business is or how inefficient your business is, it's going to cost you north of basically $150,000 to $300,000 plus just to basically have one bad hire, just one bad hire. So if you think about it, and you're calculating on a year, right? And you start counting all those dead bodies. I call them dead bodies, or I think they say in casino, right? There's a lot of a lot of holes in the desert, a lot of dead bodies fill those holes in the desert, right? And I think that's where me and you were met first time was in Vegas. But the key is, think about, right? If I have 3 bad hires, right, or I have 5 bad hires for the year, and I got 5 bad hires, and the average bad hire is 200 grand, dude, I'm burning over $1 million of lost profits in bad hires. So if you look at that thing, if you don't take hiring serious, they haven't picked up the book, just kidding, or the Audible. Okay. But the whole purpose is it's designed to teach you where the invisible hole in your pocket is, right? You remember back in the day, they had that invisible hole in the wall, right? Where, it's a 16th inch gap around a 12 by 12 inch square opening is like a 12 square inch hole leading directly outdoors, like a brick, right? If you look through that, blah, 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 blah. So it's kind of the same thing. This is the invisible hole in your pocketbook, right? So we want to get pay raises. We want profit. We want basically all these different things we expect as an employee, but yet we're not taking care of the business. Not because I think it's on purpose. I don't think anyone shows up to work to do a bad job on purpose, but I think because we're ignorant and blind, it's a blind spot that we're not taking too serious, right? And I loved what you said. I loved what you said. Well, sometimes you bring people that are industry pros in, and they can be just as bad, if not worse, than a brand new person because arrogance, right? Arrogance is a weakness. Confidence is a strength. My buddy Ken Biddle, the one that beat that in my head, we worked together for a little bit. He's going to be on the legend thing. Pretty cool. But the purpose is, again, if arrogance is creeping in and you say, I know that, and I'm sure you know it. Once you change brands, your approach based on how the brand approaches the customer and what they call their end result, if you're not able to adapt and change, you're going to find yourself unemployed in a real big hurry. And you're going to realize that person you thought was a hitter for one company end up coming and crap the bed in yours. Instance, right? You take people that work for specific brands. When you strip the S off the chest, the Superman, I call it, off the chest, right? And you got to go operate in a normal brand or a brand that's not as well known. You find those people generally fall off the wagon, and the only thing they want to do is blame everything but themselves because they didn't adapt. So again, when you're looking at your business, it's not as easy as like, hey, just hire the right person. No, there's some thought process got to be put into it. So if you don't know the recipe and I leave the flour out, suddenly the cake doesn't bake, right? So I got to make sure that all the recipe is there so we can be successful and keep those profits in our pocket, build a team that wants to elevate and make us better and stop wasting money.
So the opportunity cost, and I'm going to use the numbers just because it's high level. I can't stress enough. People need to get the book, get the workbook that goes along with it, which I love because it gives you the actual strategies and tactics to implement. But you're saying, okay, I got a $5,200 NSLI or RPL or slug, whatever you want to call it. And I think you did it over 6 months. So I'm gonna, this is from the memory, 192 leads. That means it's gonna, they should produce on 192 leads. If that's your RPL goal, somewhere around 900 and some thousand, 998, almost $1 million. Yeah. If you do the math after 6 months and that rep is not hitting that RPL, and whatever that number be, I think you said it was like, I don't know, 500 or 600 grand. I mean, the difference was insanity on opportunity cost. So every dollar below that, plus the cost of hiring, the $28,310, that's what's being lost.
Yeah. Well, and it's even greater than that where it's unquantifiable, dude. Like you look at like just 90 days. I just did the math on that. 90 days, 468,000. You should have on 400 on 90 days. You got a $5,200 slug, right? So if they only bring in 100 on those 90 leads, right? I mean, I lost automatically 368,000, right? So that's missed opportunity cost because that if I would have given the right reps those appointments, I would have yielded that much business. So I lost 300,000 just like that, right? Just in 90 days, not even 6 months. So then you got to think about else too. What did those reps that were in your team? What mentally did they do to the rest of your team? Think about it. What mentally
mosquito.
Yeah. Well, think about it, right? We're going to talk about a mosquito. Let's talk about a mosquito, right? Joe, have you ever been driving to work and been flipped off before?
Yeah.
Okay. What happens the rest of the day? What are you wearing? What are you thinking about?
That.
Yeah, you get pissed off, right? And I start owning that, and I get pissed, and I take it the rest of the day, right? Because 3 seconds of negativity affects the central nervous system for 21 hours. You can thank my wife for that stat, right? So the whole thing is when you think about that, one person coming out and puking on someone else runs their entire productivity. Now, if I got one person that's not producing, oh, these leads suck. My old company would do this. This is this thing. You guys don't even know how bad this is here, right? Now, suddenly they're infecting your team. So not only do they cost you $300,000 just for themselves on that inefficiency, right? Just on the leads, not even counting the 28 grand they put in. Then now suddenly they're infecting the rest of your team. And now you got basically your weed in the garden that you didn't get out. And now suddenly they're eating your lunch, right? And that now you can't even quantify that. So now suddenly your $5,200 yield as a company drops down to like $4,500. And now you got $500 based on every appointment you run in there that's killing you. So there's a lot of variables when you start thinking about it that are unquantifiable, or they technically are, but you don't know the root cause until you figure out what the root cause is, right? But if you're staying on top of your business and you understand your business and you know your why, then you be consistent, fair, and defendable with that. So that's that. Sick.
If you,
Disgusting.
I can't stress enough. Let's just say, I know it sounds, and I don't push this, so people can get mad at me for saying this, but I'm telling you right now, you spend $15. Did I lose? Oh, it looks like I've lost my camera.
I can hear you, but yeah, your camera popped
We're
up.
live.
Not a big
That's
deal.
fun. Yeah. Oh, well, I'll figure it out. It doesn't make a difference. I want to make sure that I cover this because I think it's important. Plus, I don't look that great anyway, so it's probably going to help the views. But if you spend $15 on a book like this, right? You spend $15 on books all the time. You spend $15 on the book on this, and you run the cost of the hire exercise that you go through in the book. If that $15 doesn't get completely multiplied and saved and repay you, call me. Let me know. Because that alone, when I did it with a location, it just is such an eye opener. And again, sometimes you just want to avoid it, right? Naturally, you're like, I know it's bad. I don't want to look at it. But so until you do that, that's one part of it. But I can't stress enough how spot on. Let's see. There we go. Sorry about that.
No, good.
Just doing the pre-hire cost, the post-hire cost exercise that you go through in the book. You tell everybody how to do it. It is the most eye-opening exercise. And again, a lot of the opportunity cost doesn't even show up on a P&L. So that's the stuff that really the exercise works well with. But also just recognizing between the recruiter, the ads, the testing, the onboarding, the training. I mean, we've brought up BG a lot, right? BG used to say people should, some of these reps should have to pay us for the training, right? It's that good, if it is that good. But there is still cost. The trainer, the whether it's a week, 2 weeks of onboarding, all of it, the materials, the demo kits. We haven't even gotten into elite cost of leads. We're just talking about pre-hire. It's worth it. I mean, that's one of my favorite exercises. I did it as soon as I kind of cheated when I first read the book and went to the back to this and was like, oh boy, this is going to be fun. And that's one of my favorite takeaways from the book. I mean, there's a lot in there. I do want to highlight real quick. What are some that the other thing that I really like about the book that you did is you actually did, I'm assuming, I can't remember, you recorded with permission, but you recorded an actual interview.
Yep.
With Kevin was the rep, if I remember correctly. I love that you put the entire transcript in the book. Cause I got to be honest, I'm reading through the interview in the order and I'm like, good hire. And then ultimately you're like, nope. And here's why. So you give your whole background. What are some of the keys, if you can share, not necessarily specific to Kevin's case, but what's your focus when you're doing your interview? Because I think this is something that doesn't get trained, obviously, or talked about very much, and probably is a big missing link when it comes to hiring, is to properly interview somebody.
Oh yeah, it is a art and a
thoughts?
science. Yeah, it's an art and a science, in my opinion. Right, the interviewing is a skill, right? Because there's professional interviews out there. Like people that come in, they're like great interviews. They look sharp, basically have the right smell. They've studied on how to interview, right? And they studied on how to follow up and all the different things that you expect a candidate to do. But really, you can strip somebody right down to their underwear in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and know exactly who you have sitting in front of you if you do it right. Right. So there's different types of people. And I think I talk about in the book, the auditory learner. Right. So sometimes we have people like, I'm a big Audible guy. Like I listen to Audible more than I read books, to be honest with you. But the challenge is, like, when you get somebody that's an auditory learner. I had this guy, it was a good rep of mine, right? It's just like when I was talking about Kevin in the book, like he answered all the things right, but I caught a couple behaviors, right? Because at the end of the day, you got to look at it. Can I manage the behavior of the person sitting in front of me? And can they fit in my culture? And number two, do they have the right learning style to teach customers the way they need to be taught? Right. So again, there's X amount of percentage of people out there that are visual learners, right? There's X amount of people that are auditory learners, and there's X amount of people that are kinesthetic learners, right? People generally have a combination of three, but they lean heavy to one. So, there's ways you can look at, I give in the book, the way to read eyes, right? When you're talking about eyes to see if somebody's visual, audio, kinesthetic, and then kind of tell you the why. And the why is, one of the whys is I sit in front of you, and let's say you're an auditory learner, right? So one of the things we realize is we teach the same way we learn, right? We teach the same way we learn. Think about that. When you're having a conversation with people, we talk in sight. If I'm a big seer, if I look at things, and I talk in sight. Hey, did you see what we happened the other day? Compared to, hey, did you hear what happened the other day? So we start taking a little NLP in there, right? And start looking at pacing and mirroring and different things of that nature, which is all cool. But in this aspect, I got to figure out how they're gonna teach my customers, right? And putting yourself in two aspects where we want to make sure we're winning. Who do I have sitting in front of me? And then what are they going to do, good or bad, for the business? Are they going to help me get towards my goals or away from my goals? So if I'm looking at an auditory learner and I sit in front of you, and the only thing I do is I don't take out my presentation, I don't have my visual aids, and all I'm doing is we're just talking, just like me and you are doing right now. I'm talking and I'm trying to educate you, but with just my words. Yeah. Right? You said it before again. I was like, I don't want to read this big long dissertation because I'm not going to remember it. Right. Yeah. And a lot of us don't realize, but if you had learning disabilities in school, it's probably because you're an auditory learner and they were teaching you visually. So if I'm going into somebody's house and I'm not smart enough to understand how to teach you, because again, my capability is not there, or I don't understand why, then suddenly I'm teaching you the wrong way. And if I'm teaching you the wrong way, you're not going to buy because I didn't give you the information you needed to absorb it the right way. I taught you the wrong way, which means I'm going to have the wrong result. So when you look at those things, we got to put ourselves in the position of when we're hiring somebody to think more of just, do they meet my checklist? Yes. Okay. You're on. You're better than my bottom 20%. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the whole thing about it is like we're just lighting money on fire, right? Light it. Right. So it's so one of the things then when you start calculating again that cost of it, and you're starting to look at your people across from you, do you really know why you're bringing somebody on? How do they fit in my culture? How do they fit within my team? How do they fit with my customer journey? Can I define what success looks like in my company? And can I see them running that play? And if that's in it, and you can figure out how to get somebody right down to their shorts in the middle of that interview, I'll give you a fun one. You want a fun one here? I'll give you two questions. Okay. I'm
in. Yeah.
Give you two fun questions, right? And these fun questions will get most people on there, right? So first off, if I say, hey, real quick, Joe, I'm looking at your resume right through here, right? If you could erase one thing from your resume, what would it be? If you could erase one thing from your resume, what would it be? And then they're going to give you something. Okay, that's great. Well, why? And they say, blah, 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 right? Cool. Okay. Hey, what was your manager's name over there? It was XYZ. Okay. Well, when I call him and I say, hey, what would he tell me you're good at? What do you say the best thing you are? What was your shining light? It was this. Cool. Now let me ask you again. When I call him and ask him what your areas of improvement or needed improvement are, what's he going to tell me? And he's like, oh crap. And when you use their manager's name, suddenly it sparks the interest, right? And then now they're like, well, yeah, he would probably say I need to get a little better on my paperwork. Okay. Well, let me ask you, since that was the one you would erase, what have you done to correct that behavior? And then I'm putting them on the spot to see if they're actually growing from their failure or learning from it, right? Second thing is this right here. Hey, what is the shiny star on your resume? If you could pick one thing in your resume, it's your shining star, your career builder, the one thing you hang your hat on why you're sitting in front of me and feeling capable. What is that one thing? Well, is this. Oh, it's awesome. How long were you there for? It looks like this. Awesome. Who's your manager over there? It's all cool. Okay, sweet. So it sounds like to me, you probably still know that presentation by heart, don't you, Joe?
Yeah.
Oh, I bet you do, man. You probably killed it. And on a level of 1 to 10, right? Were you the number 1 rep? Were you 10 out of 10? Were you 8 out of 10? Where'd you go compared to your competition? I was a 10. Awesome, man. You probably still remember it. Hey, you like to have fun? I do. Real quick, you be the rep. I'm going to be a homeowner. Present me right now on that. And what happens is you're going to see them come alive, or you're going to see them fail right there, right in front of you. And if you're not buying what they're putting down when they told you they're the best, why would you put them on your team? Right. So
Yeah.
that's a quick way to strip them down to their underwear, and you get to see exactly who you have sitting in front of you, where they put their actions, where their words did. Is one of those things. Can your butt cash a check that your mouth, or can you basically cash that check basically, or can you fail because you just talked a bunch of crap? Because we know resumes, as I call in the book, is a lie report. So again, if you can't figure out where the lies and where the truth is, then again, you're a sucker, means you're getting sold, just like we talk about in the house to reps all the time, right?
Yeah, I love when you talk about using the manager's name, when I follow up with him, but also you do that with verifiable income. That's something I learned from you that I love. What's your highest verifiable income, right?
Yeah.
Just to see how they respond. And then actually you talk about it in the book, which is hard. I'm not there yet, but being able to look at people's eyes to tell if they're searching for an answer or they're telling you the truth because they know whatever they're getting ready to say has already occurred in reality. So it's the truth.
Yep.
That's pretty awesome to do.
Yeah. Because when you eyes don't lie. The eyes don't lie. Now I'll warn you, right? Because there might be some people that may have studied NLP and specific things in there. You have to find someone's baseline, which means Yummy. This is a fun stat right here, right? How many ways do people tell the truth?
No idea.
One. How many ways people lie? Thousands, millions, right? So again, there's only one way people tell the truth. So until you find their baseline, which is how they tell the truth, you can't figure out how they lie. But the cool thing is your eyes are connected right to your thoughts, right? So again, if I don't know the answer, I'm gonna pull up before I answer, and that's going to tell you a lot of their visual, audio, or kinesthetic, right? If I am trying to figure out how to win, basically I'm trying to figure out if they're telling me the truth, I can ask specific questions to see if I find their baseline on how they tell the truth. So it's kind of cool when you start figuring it out. And that's what one of the treats I put in the book, to let you basically figure out how to strip someone down their underwear and see if you have an honest person in front of you. Because if I can't trust you, why would I want you on my team, right? Think of like your culture is like a house. If your culture is like a house and you think of your business, your team like a house, do I want to let anyone in my house that is going to do bad things to my family, right? We always talk about, if you're using the word family, be careful with that, right? Especially in an interview, because that can come off ingenuous, right? But if you're letting anyone in your own house that your family is going to do damage, create chaos, put you in harm's way, you're not going to let them inside your house regardless, right? But yet we let these same people in our business that have ill will and intentions, or basically it's the way they're wired, or they're a liar right out the start. So you're buying what they call a facade. So there's ways to catch it, but you got to be better at understanding, finding your why and your why not, and then stay consistent, fair, and defendable with your hiring actions on that.
I printed out the visual. I keep it on my desktop all the time of where their eyes go. I mean, I'm dead serious. I'm still working on it because I think it's just the most. I like things that are not so much theory as they are, hey, this is science. Like, this is why not, right? Like, who am I to defend that? And all the hours of the research and the implementation. So when I saw that visual in the book, I was like, oh, gonna take that and keep it on my desktop. And it's spot on, man. It's scary. You'll see exactly where their eyes go when they are on it. When you give them some basic truth questions to find their baseline, and then where they go when they're just totally, I wouldn't even say lying, but like looking for the answer versus knowing.
Yeah.
Because
it doesn't necessarily mean they're lying. Yeah. They're creating it. Right? They're making it up on the spot, which means they're creating it. Right. So there's different things. That's why I like what's your highest verifiable income. And saying verifiable, because then they feel like you're going to check, right? If it's not verifiable, then they're just going to throw us, well, I made 400 grand. Really? And what did you make 400 grand, right? Instead of saying, hey, what's your highest verifiable income? Oh, it's like 220. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And what were you doing? Then you can get onto whatever layer questions you're going to get into, but you can really, again, start figuring out who you have in front of you with some of those questions. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So what else is going on? What are you seeing? You're all over the country. You guys got so many gosh darn businesses. What's something big you're seeing in 2025 that you're like, either different, new? What are you seeing in your world, if you don't mind sharing? Anything?
No, I love you said that, right? Well, tech is obviously on the up and up, right? So again, if you're not embracing tech, you're falling behind, right? So the one thing I'd tell you there, but a lot of it goes back to brass roots, right? And I hate to be this guy. So if you call me that guy, I'm fine with it. I got big shoulders. I can handle it, right? I worked out this morning. So the whole thing is you have to get back to the brass roots of what makes people successful, right? In COVID, we took, for instance, that we had what I call a 2 to 3 year, what I call falsarity. A lot of businesses blew up. A lot of people made a lot of money in that period of time, right? So there was a lot of people that were living on what they did in 2022, 2023, and they're thinking that's the norm, right? So that can still be the norm, but you got to put the work in, right? So if you're not going back to your tried and true processes, commitments, things of that nature, and really understanding your customer and trying to be better. I love, basically Jim Rohn, don't wish for things to be easier, wish to be better, right? So you got to put the work in. If you're not willing to put the work in, like it's one of the things we talk about great day is I always talk about called row the boat, right? We're all rowing the boat in the same direction, same end in mind with the same results there. But if you don't even know why you show up, it's a big deal, right? So right now, a sales rep or a sales representative, design consultant, marketing director, whatever you call them, has to be better than they were the last 2 years, right? If you're not challenging your people to be better every single day, and you're not using tech, or we talked about Zero, right? You're not using things of that nature to help you get better, then you're falling behind, right? And customers nowadays, people are getting better. Sales reps are getting better. Technology is getting better, right? So if you're not getting better and you're staying the way you've always done, I always love my new saying, right? If not even new, I've been saying for about a year, but if you do what you've always done, you don't get what you've always gotten, you get less, right? If you do what you've always done, you don't get what you've always gotten, you get less. So again, right now, if you're not beating the basics and you don't know how to have a conversation with structure and process, you're not going to be successful. Because the one thing that never changes, Joseph, the one thing that never changes is human behavior. Human behavior is predictable. So if you think you're going to outsmart human behavior with just a warm up and think they love me, so they're going to buy, I hate to tell you, but you need to look in the mirror and call yourself an idiot because you don't know what you don't know. And you need to trust the process, right? So when in doubt, trust the process, because again, this has been around a long time. Nothing's new, but the implementation and the execution of it is all the difference in the world, right? You want to talk about a difference between a $100,000 rep and a $500,000 year rep? The difference is the action and activity they put into it themselves to have the biggest outcome. That's one reason why I love where I'm at, because again, we get to influence 12 companies, and predominantly focus in on a few at a time. But the thing is, again, when you take a power of network and everyone's rowing the boat and you got your team and you guys are rowing the boat, as we talked about earlier, and you define your culture and your why, not only for basically your hiring, but your whole business.
Yeah.
Big things happen because what you're doing is you're building belief. So I tell you, if you're a representative out here listening, you're driving your thing, if you don't have belief in yourself, you're not going to be successful. Everything you do, am I exceeding expectations of myself? Because I can't help anyone else unless put my life, just my mask on first, right? I got to make sure I help myself and exceed expectations myself. Then again, with what I'm exceeding for myself, am I exceeding of that of my company and my customer, right? Making sure, again, you know how to row the boat so everybody is successful. And if everybody wins, your paycheck wins too. But if you're only worried about your paycheck winning, eventually that's going to fall down, because motivation is like a bath and it's needed every day. So if you don't have the environment that around there, if your accountability partners aren't the 5 people you hang around with, then again, I know that's overused now, but if you're not hanging out with the right 5 people, then basically your results are going down because of your environment, not up.
I don't have anything else to add to that. They just hit the nail on the head. I love it. I know, again, it's early. I know you're an early guy regardless, but for you to get up and get on Windshield time with us and make it work, I'm so glad we didn't have to reschedule for another day, another week, man. I'm forever grateful, my friend.
Yeah, it was great, man. Great to catch back up. You're
Thank
the man,
you so
dude.
much. And you're in the group, do me a favor when you see it live, just contact or tag yourself to it, or I can do that. That way people know how to reach you. I know you're always willing to help, even guys that aren't necessarily directly on your team. I just know that's how you are. So if you have any questions around this, anybody that gets a chance to watch this, I know, just reach out to Dustin. He'll help you any way he can. He's helped me numerous times. But I can't stress enough, get the book, because there aren't very many out there on this subject. And there's just, the nuggets are just wonderful. It's worth it. So I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate you jumping on.
I love what, in closing, I love what Michael Hoy says, right? He goes, you know what? We help everybody, because if nothing's a secret and everyone's better, if the industry's better, it helps everyone be better. And that's what we're all about, man.
That is 100% truth, because he texts me all the time. What can I help you with? He does that all the time. He'll find out some piece of information. He'll be like, hey, I just heard this. By the way, what can I help you with? So we got to get him back on here as well. So a lot of exciting news in y'all's world. I'm excited for you to be a part of that team, and I can't thank you enough for joining us today, man. Have a good weekend.
All right, thank you, brother. Have a good day, man. Appreciate you guys, and see you on the board. Let's go.
Love it. Thanks, man.
All right. Bye, buddy.
Bye.